Hey there, in this video let us work on the basics of inverse function. Now what is inverse function? So in the previous video we worked on forward function, correct? So inverse function is basically the reverse process of the forward function. So if let's say now we got a mapping diagram here. You got 1, 2, 3 on the input side, okay, and 2, 4, 6 at the output side. That means the domain and codomain. So now the forward function will link from the x value to the fx value. So that means it links from the object to the image. Okay. Now if you're going reverse, so inverse function, that means you are going to link the image, okay, the image here, to the object. So you're going the reverse process. Now how do you convert the forward function to the inverse function? So let's see. So obviously from here you can see straight away what is the relationship, correct? But if let's say all of this is not given, okay, let's say all of this is not given, you are only given, say, fx is equals to 2x, okay? So based on the relationship here, we know that 1 become 2, 2 to become 4, 3 becomes 6. So the relationship is 2x, correct? Now if let's say you don't have all this data here, how do you convert this function into an inverse function? So this is how you do it. First step is you're going to change this to become a y value. Not say y value, make it become y. Why do we do that? Because we want to make it easier for us to switch around, okay, to shift here, shift there and all that. So we just let fx equals to y. So we know from here y is equals to 2x, okay? So we already changed the fx into this. Now what we're going to do is we are going to see, you see this equation here, the y is the subject, correct? So now we are going to switch everything such that the x becomes the subject, okay? We want to make x as the subject. Why we do that? Later I'll tell you why. So we change it first, okay? So what you're going to do is y, so you're going to bring the 2 across, so it becomes divide. So y over 2 equals to x, okay? So from here you've already made x become the subject. So what is this x here? This x will represent the right here, x equals to y over 2, right? This x here represents the inverse function. Why is x the inverse function? Isn't x the input? Isn't x the object? Because you see, when you do forward function, see, when you go forward function, the x here is the object and the fx here will represent the image, correct? Now when you inverse the process, that means you reverse the whole process. Now the x for the inverse is here, correct? So that means the fx, the image of the forward function, is actually the same as the object of the inverse function. Can you see that? The relationship. So the image of the forward function, which is this, is the same as the object for the inverse function. And the same thing applies here. The image of the inverse function, this is the image, right, of the inverse function, is the same as the object of the forward function, correct? So that's why you see here the x is the same as the f inverse, and the fx here is the same as the x for the inverse, okay? So that's why we are using the forward function here, right? So when we rearrange such that x is x as the subject, the x is actually the inverse function. So that's why I can make it become fx, okay? So when you change into fx, what happens is fx is equals to, are we going to write y over 2? No, because you are using x here, right? So this will be x over 2. Okay, so in other words, I will recap what we say. First thing is we replace fx into y, okay? Why you want to do that? So that it will be easier for us to switch the subject, okay? So after that, you make x as the subject instead of y, because originally y is the subject, right? We're going to change it to become x as a subject. So once x becomes the subject, now the x here will become the f inverse. Okay, I already explained why. So x becomes the f inverse, and the y values, the y in the equation becomes x. Okay, so this equation here will represent your inverse function. So you see it is completely opposite. So the forward function is 2 times x. The inverse function will be x divided by 2. Okay, so it is the complete opposite of the forward function. Clear? So let's go through some examples here. So the first question, given fx is equals to 3x plus 2, find the inverse. So we're going to do this together. So we have this, right? So first step is we're going to change this to become y. So let fx equals to y. Okay, so now you have y equals to 3x plus 2. So now that first step is done. We already make it become y. Second step is you want to make x become the subject. Okay, so to make x become the subject, I'm going to shift this first. So y minus 2 equals to 3x, and then y minus 2 divided by 3 equals to x. Okay, so now we have already made x as the subject. Okay, so x is the same as the inverse function. So f inverse, and then this value, the y there, have to change to become x. So x minus 2 over 3. Clear? So this is how you do inverse function. Now let's see next one. Slightly harder. So now they give you gx. Okay, they give you gx. Find g inverse and also g4. Okay, so first step we do the g inverse first. Okay, we find g inverse x. Okay, before we do that, we want to change this to become y. Okay, so let's write let gx equals to y. So now your equation is y equals to 2 over 3x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to bring this whole thing up there and bring the y down. Okay, you can actually switch places. So 3x minus 1 equals to 2 over y. Why am I doing this? Because I want to make x as the subject. Okay, so now I'm going to bring negative 1. So 3x equals to 2 over y plus 1. X is equals to, so you're going to divide by 3, right? So you get 2 over 3y plus 1 over 3. Okay, so now you've already gotten x as a subject. So the x is the same as the inverse. So is, sorry, this is g, right? So g inverse x is equals to 2 over 3y plus 1 over, 2 over 3x, because I already changed it to x here, plus y over 3. Okay, by the way, if you're wondering why I write x here, right, it's because I wrote inside here as x. What does this mean? This means that the whole equation, when the value inside here is x, that means everything in the equation must be in terms of x. Okay, if you want to leave this value here as y, if you want to leave the value here as y, then you cannot write gx, you must write g inverse y. Okay, so that means the whole equation will be in terms of y. Clear? But since I'm using x, so my whole equation has to be in terms of x. Okay, so now wait, let me erase all this. Okay, so we are done with the inverse function. Now let us find g inverse 4. So it will be g inverse 4. So you get 2 over 3 times 4 plus 1 over 3. So you get 2 over 12 plus, so what I can change here is times 4, right? So 4 over 12. So I get 6 over 12. Answer is 1 over 2. So g inverse 4 is equals to 1 over 2. So here's another way how question can ask. Okay, they give you two functions. One is the forward function, one is the inverse function, and they want you to compare. Okay, this is what we call as the comparison type of question. Okay, so they ask you to find h and k. So there are two ways you can solve this. The first way is either you convert the forward function into the inverse function, and then you compare, okay, or you can change the inverse function into the forward function, and then you same thing, you compare. Okay, so since you have never tried converting from the inverse, we will try converting the inverse. Okay, so the inverse function we have here is f, okay, so it's already given here, right? F inverse equals to 14 plus 24x over x. So first thing is, let f inverse equals to y. Okay, the steps are the same. So y equals to 14 plus 24x over x. So I'm going to bring the x up here. So I get xy equals 14 plus 24x. Then I'm going to bring the 24x across. Okay, I put the x together. So xy minus 24x equals to 14. Remember, the goal is to make x become the subject. So now that the x are together, but we can't calculate, right? Because this is y, this is 24. So you can't calculate. So what you do is you factorize. So when you factorize, you have y minus 24 equals to 14. So from here, okay, let me just go down a bit. Okay, so from here, we can bring the y minus 24 to the other side. So 14 over y minus 24. Okay, so let me write up here. So remember, x now is, it becomes the what? So just now it was, we are starting from inverse function, right? So now this x here will become the forward function. So fx, okay, wait, fx equals to, so I use x, right? So everything must be in terms of x. So 14 over x minus 24. Okay, so now that you have converted into a forward function, now we can compare with the forward function. So the forward function given is fx equals to 2h over x minus 3k. So from here, what we can see is the 14 is the same as 2h, and the 24 is the same as 3k. So we can find h and k now. So 2h equals to 14, so h is equals to 7. And then 3k is equals to 24, so k is equals to 8. Clear? So the main thing is, either you convert forward function to the inverse, or you convert the inverse to the forward function, and then you compare. Okay, that's how you do it. Now there's one more type of question like this. This is a bit, not to say tricky, I would say you need to understand the concept. Okay, there is a faster way to solving this. So like I said, there are two methods. The first method is the long method. The second method is a much simpler one if you understand the concept. Okay, we'll go through the first method first. So method 1. So the question here, they gave you the forward function and they ask you to find this. Okay, sorry, not they asked you to find this. They gave you the relationship between the 5 and 14, but they're only using the inverse function. Okay, and then they ask you to find the value of m. Okay, so for this, the first method is, what we can do is we can convert the gx into the inverse function first. Okay, then we use the relationship here to solve. We can do that. Okay, so we'll try that first. Okay, so we have gx, so let gx equals to y equals to m minus x over x minus 3. Okay, so I bring this one up here, so I get xy minus 3y equals to m minus x. So same as the previous question, I put all the x together. So I bring this here, and this negative 3y I bring across to the other side. So xy plus x equals to m plus 3y. So I can't really calculate anything, so I'm going to factorize the x. So y plus 1 equals m plus 3y. So x is equals to m plus 3y over y plus 1. So same thing. So since we started with the forward function, okay, so this x here will represent the inverse function. So g inverse x equals to, so now the equation must be in terms of x, so m plus 3x over x plus 1. Okay, so now that you have gotten the inverse function, we can use the relationship here. Okay, since we are looking for g inverse 5 and equals to 14. Okay, forget about 14 first. We want g inverse 5, right? So g inverse 5 means what? All the x value is equals to 5. So m plus 3 times 5 over x, sorry, there's no x there. So 5 plus 1. Okay, so g inverse 5 is the same, is equals to what? 14, right? So I'm going to write here 14 equals to m plus 15 over 6. So how do we find m? So we shift the 6 and the 15 across. So you get 14 times 6 minus 15. Yeah. So your answer, you should get 69. Okay. So this is one way you can do it. You convert the forward function into inverse function. Then you use the relationship here to solve. That is one way you can do it. There is another way, which is much faster if you understand the concept. So let's see, method 2. See, before I go into actually solving the question, I need you to understand this. So remember just now I said that when you got the mapping diagram here, forward function, here is the object, here is the image, correct? So this is the f function. But when you inverse the function, when you inverse it, now the object is the object for the forward will be the same value as the image of the inverse, right? So here will be f inverse x. This will be the image for f inverse. So they are actually the same thing, correct? These two are actually the same thing. It's just that one is for the forward function, one is for the inverse function. And same goes to the object. So the object here will be x. This is the object. So the object for the inverse function is the same as the image of the forward function. Clear? So if I write like this, let's say I write here 7 and 14. Okay, if I write in terms of forward function, how will it look like? It should look like this. Let's say this is f. Okay, so f 7. So that means when the input is 7 for the forward function, it will get a image of 14. Okay, this is by writing for forward function. But now what if I write for inverse function? If I write for inverse function, the value inside here should be the x value, right? But not this x value. It is this x value, because now the object is the other side, because you're going from a different direction, inverse function. So the object is on the other side. So now is what? 14. So the inverse of 14 will give you 7. Okay, so what do you notice from here? You notice that they are actually what? Interchanged, right? Do you see that? So the forward function, the input is 7, it becomes the image for the inverse function. So that's what I meant here. The object is the same as the image. Object of the forward function is the same as the image of the inverse function. So they actually, you can actually just swap places. So in other words, if let's say the question give you like this, f2 equals to 6. Okay, let's say if I want to change this to become inverse function, it should look like this. F inverse 6 equals to 2. I just swap places only. Okay, because I change it to inverse function. You need to understand this concept so that you can solve this much quicker. Okay, so let me erase this. Okay, so now let me write back this. You got method 2. So the method 2 is by converting this into a forward function. Because why? I have a forward function here. So I'm going to convert this into a forward function relationship. Okay, so this one, if I change to G, so here will be G14 equals to 5. I just swap places. Okay, so now I have a forward function relationship. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute this into the equation here. Okay, so we have G14 so equals to m minus 14 over 14 minus 3. Okay, so G14 is what? G14 is 5. So 5 equals to m minus 14 over 11. So to find m, I take 5 times 11 plus 14. So I should get the same answer, 69. Okay, so if you notice, this one is so much easier, right? If only you understood the concept of converting this into a forward function. Okay, if you don't want, then you have to convert this instead. So if you convert this, you have to use method 1. So it's going to be a longer step. Clear? So that's about it for this inverse function. I hope you find it useful and hope to see you on my next video. Take care. Bye bye.